And the words of healing that you heard this day be with you and guide you in all that you do. Amen. Some of you may have noticed that one of the things that's a little different today is that it's a men's show. I haven't seen that for a while here. And that's the first good news I want to tell you. The stories, of course, you heard today, some of them are about healing and being sick and being weak and all those things. And so I think you need to hear a little bit of the good news side of that story. What you heard in the Gospel of Mark was a continuation of the account of Jesus' journey leading up to his last days. A big following of many people. They were in search of healing, they were in search of miracles, and even some compassion in their lives. Jesus provided all of these. That was his reputation spreading around. One of these people was a leader of the synagogue, whose name was Jairus. And he tells Jesus that his daughter is at the point of death. Could he come and heal her? She was young, said to be just 12, and his followers all wanted to go with him. Strange thing, that they liked this guy, they heard about him. Let's stick around and see what he can do. Then an interruption took place. An unknown woman is desperate for her own healing. She has suffered for 12 years from what were called hemorrhages. And we're not sure what that was. It's a lot of speculation what that disease may have been. It had something to do with blood. It could have been cancer. We don't know. That part's not told. But she reaches out to Jesus' clothing, and she is suddenly made well. Instead of being angry at her action, Jesus responds, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." And another interruption. People came from Jairus' house. Probably wasn't that far away, just to announce that his daughter is dead. And Jesus responds to them, "Do not fear, only believe." He continues on his journey. And then when he arrives at the house, of course, as you heard, he says the child is not dead, but sleeping. And he then touches the little girl and says, "Little girl, get up." And she rises, and Jesus tells the crowd to give her something to eat. You have a resurrection. The first thing you want to do is eat. The living needs food to survive. And that's a message we should all remember. So what do we make of this story? Jesus is now seen, in this particular point, as a common, everyday person who can do wonderful things in the name of God. He will serve everyone, both the wealthy, people like Jairus, who is probably well-to-do, and the poor. And as we hear throughout the gospel, the poor are his greatest concern. In the case of both a sick woman and a little girl. The lesson for us is to be aware of the world around us as we travel through our daily lives. This is where we come in. As all of us go out this door and we encounter the rest of the world. Always be looking, that's my suggestion today, for signs that God is sending us all the time. The messages out there, they're everywhere. Little things you might not even notice. And one of the things that I look for in my older years of ministry are divine signs more than ever. And the older I get, the more I see. So that's a sign for everyone here who thinks they're getting older. Stories that unfold before me, some may be very dramatic. We come across dramatic stories once in a while. Others could be very subtle. Recently, my wife Kate and I took a long-awaited vacation to the American Southwest. We just want to get away from Cody's winter for some reason. Got tired of all this wind and cold, and we figured, well, the Southwest is a good place to go. And as we traveled, I looked for some divine signs. And we traveled to Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah. Lots of signs out there. Many signs, actually. I could spend another 15, 20 minutes just going through them all, but I won't. But there are two small examples I wanted to share. One was the tour we took of the Petrified Forest National Park, which is in Arizona. This is one of those parks, doesn't get a lot of people like Yellowstone or someplace, but it's got a lot of turn-offs where you can learn about things that are petrified, which means they've been there a while. They've been changed in form, taken many years to do it. Beautiful place. Creative wonders and beauty. And it took us, there's one road, so we started from the south and went to the north, and it took most of the day just to take our time to go through there. In one stop, I couldn't help but notice a guide talking to a young couple. I thought maybe first it was his father or something, but no, he's a younger guy. He was telling them all the details of what took place over thousands of years of time. And we thought, well, that's good, and they're listening intently, but a little bit bored because it's sort of pretty technical stuff. And so we left, and I thought, that's a little strange. We went on to the next stop, and there he was again, talking to the same couple. And this continued throughout our entire journey through the park. So many facts, so many details, so many little things to know about. They weren't saying a word. I think they were bored, frankly. What was he missing? That was my thought. The divine glory of that location, of that place. I thought to myself, isn't it more important just to admire the beauty and the mystery? A glorious creation of God. And it was a gift from God to us. So that was a small one. That's one of the really small ones. But it did come to mind. Take it in, breathe it in, see it. Just let it happen to you. The other one I wanted to point out was when we were in Durango, Colorado. And Durango is famous because they have a historic train ride that people take. And it leaves Durango with a big fanfare, blowing whistles. It's an old locomotive. It's an old historic train. And it's a day-long journey, really, to go up and go back to the town of Silverton, which is an old mining town. And I'm sure some of you have taken this train from time to time, but we were prepared for it. We were ready. It was a day's journey through history. But throughout the trip, something different happened. There was this strange man, every time we slowed down, he'd be out there outside of the train, dressed in a Colorado suit. It was gold blue, head to toe. He was a middle-aged black man with a tremendous smile. He was smiling at us, and he would hold a Colorado flag. And we thought, well, that's cute. What's he doing here? And we go on a little farther, and be a slow down, and there he was again, with his old beat-up car in the distance. And standing there, smiling, holding that little Colorado flag, and smiling at everybody. And people would wave back, and they thought it was pretty fun to see him out there. Then we go on to the next one, the same thing would happen. There he'd be, waiting for us on the journey. In one particular time, we slowed down, and he was out there. He had a Bigfoot suit on, covered in hair, with a Colorado flag. Then we kept on going, and we began to think, well, what's he doing this for? We figured for sure, we talked about people on the train. When we get to Silverton, he's going to be there with a hat to collect some tips. We were sure that was going to happen. And this finally got into Silverton, and there he was, just standing out there waiting to talk to everybody. No hat, no money, just there. And people liked talking with him. And it sort of made their day. We spent an hour in Silverton, and then we got back on the train, started the trip back down the canyon. Beautiful canyon. Beautiful trip. And guess what? There he was again. Dressed in that Colorado suit with an American flag this time. On and on we went for the entire trip back, and there he was each time. And we asked the people on the train, we said, who is this guy? Why is he doing this? They said, well, he often comes out there and joins the train when we take the trip. And he just does it for fun. It's for fun. He wants to make people happy. Wants to give them something more in their life. And they said, well, that's great. And sure enough, right at the end, there he was again, back in the Colorado suit with that flag. So, first they're puzzling. Each time, though, he grabbed our attention, and several people asked, what does he want from this? And again, he just wants to tell you about the glory of life. He often appears for fun. A truly divine act. So I tell you those stories because it's one of the things that happen when you get out there and look and listen to see what's going on. And for me, I've learned little stories like these, and they teach a divine lesson. Whether it be Jesus doing an act of love for strangers, healing people he didn't even know, or stories to teach me to just sit back and enjoy the gifts of love when they come your way, and a better way to appreciate the gifts of nature. Because nature gives you everything for free, and that's true grace. So I tell you today, simply as a suggestion to do it, look for your own signs on your next journey, wherever it is you go. Sometimes it will be helpful to you in a very confusing world. It's growing more and more confusing all the time. Be aware of the messages that are sent our way. These are all little teachings. They're teachings that can help you through your life, no matter where your life takes you next.